It has just gone 8 o'clock Central African time. Good evening and welcome to the news bulletin at 8, brought to you by Eswatini TV. My name is Tanipo Ngwane. Thank you so much for choosing to stay with us. We're coming to you live from our Hospital Hill studios in Mbabane, and these are your top stories tonight. The number of COVID-19 admissions in the country have decreased drastically. The Ministry of Education has issued French and ICT textbooks that will be used by grade 3 learners. And SWAMA President Lutho Dlamini says local artists are faced with a lot of challenges during the COVID-19 era. And now the news in detail. The Director of Health Services, Dr. Vusi Makakule, says the number of COVID-19 admissions in the country have decreased drastically. Makakula says currently there are some COVID-19 facilities that do not have any patients admitted.
The Director of Health Services, Dr. Vusi Makakula, says the decline in COVID-19 admissions in the country is attributed to the programs government put in place to stop the spread of the virus. He says another contributing factor is that Eswatini are following the regulations.
Yes, as you can see, the Honourable Minister releases a statement on a daily basis, and it shows that the number of newly confirmed cases has remained low for a couple of days now. So we can confirm that the number of cases are low, which is what we actually envisage to see and we are hoping to do. And this is all a culmination of the efforts of government in ensuring that people do get less and less people get infected with the condition. We have the 3 COVID facilities, which are basically ours, and the other one is a private one, that is the Luke Commission. It also has very low numbers now of confirmed cases. And Mavuso COVID Center, as well as the Lubombo Referral Hospital, which was turned into a COVID center, they also have very low or no cases at all. This has been a great effort by the entire government to ensure that as less and less Eswatini are actually infected. So we are reaping the fruits of all the work that has been going on collectively from the government in ensuring the safety, the health and safety of Eswatini. And we would like to encourage Eswatini to continue with these prevention measures.
On Saturday, the Minister of Health, Lizzie Nkosi, said there were 35 active cases of COVID-19 in the country. Over 17,000 people in the country have contracted the virus since its outbreak last year. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, Nelson Ngamandla, Mbabane.
Some of the nominees in the ongoing by-elections opt to decline their nominations in fear of losing the elections, then find themselves jobless. Some of the nominees were speaking during the ongoing EBC Civic and Voter Education. KNMCB has more on that story.
The ongoing civic and voter education by the Elections and Boundaries Commission seemed to be an eye-opener for many in as far as elections is concerned. Questions arising include the issue of leaves for employees if they have been nominated in the by-elections. Many fear of losing their jobs after they have been nominated and after they have lost the elections, thus they prefer to turn down the nominations. Charles Malinga from Lamkapi asked what exactly is the procedure in terms of applying for the leave once you have been nominated.
Ngicela uvote le leave uyicela nini ke le leave nase uphasile ndelikhetho lokuqala noma vele nje uthi vele uthathe leave ngomsongena likhetho kuthi ngivele ngeke umsebenzi wabe ngicabanga ukuthi bathangincoma kala mgaba.
Answering to that question, the EBC Commissioner Sipotembe says people must not fear of losing their jobs if they have lost on the elections. One must just return and talk to their previous employer and get his or her job back. He also answered the question of a person who was 17 years or less in 2018 during the elections who could not vote then but is now above 18 years. They asked if that person is eligible to vote in the ongoing by-elections. Tembe emphasized that these are by-elections, meaning they are still the 2018 elections, meaning they cannot vote, only those on the voters' roll can.
Bekunene njengoba sivedile ukuthi lolu khetho lolu lwa 2018 lwa 2018 sivala tikhala lekusho ukuthi kwanyalo bongosi vele noma ngabe so ufikile ku 18 lowekunene usengakakavumeleki ukuthi la kulolu khetho lesikilo namhla lesithi ngama by-elections alungenele.
He says they can only wait for the 2023 elections where they can vote for the then elections. The EPC continues to provide dates, places and times for the ongoing civic and voter education ahead of the elections. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Kian MCB Babane.
The fight against HIV and AIDS can only be won through collaboration between relevant organizations and the Ministry of Tingunda. Now, according to Nature's Corporate Affairs Manager Thandi Gama, she says community leaders will be provided with tablets in order for them to be able to collect HIV data that can be shared regionally to ensure that programs to fight the disease at community level becomes a success.
In a bid to ensure that programs aimed at fighting the spread of HIV and AIDS in communities continues, the Ministry of Tingunda, together with Nature, had a meeting meant to look at how best can HIV preventative programs reach people in their constituencies.
Sidawuphinza sibaside sibanikede ema-tablets lengibona la tawusita nge-community bakwadi ukuthi bakoleke i-information lehambelana ne-HIV.
Nature's Corporate Affairs Manager, Thandi Gama, says community leaders will be provided with tools such as tablets to collect HIV and AIDS data in different communities.
Vele ufinyelela njani lemimangweni nature? Ufinyelela njani kulabantu ngamunye emimangweni?
The Director for Decentralization in the Ministry of Tingunda, Dumsani Sithole, says for the relevant organization to work on eradicating HIV and AIDS, the Ministry of Tingunda welcomes such engagements as they need to be capacitated on which programs are implemented in various communities. The Kingdom of Eswatini is among the first countries that were able to achieve the 395%, which represents that 95% of Emaswati know their HIV status, 95% are taking treatment for suppressing the virus, while 95% of the population, their viral load has been suppressed. For Eswatini TV News, Sondomlange Nutmuzi Mkhonda inezulwini.
The Ministry of Education and Training has, for the first time this year, issued a French and Information Communication and Technology textbook for grade 3 learners. This was said by the curriculum designers Nomfundo Sugati and Temeko Simamba, who explained that this is in line with the country's curriculum guideline framework for general education of 2018.
The curriculum designer for Science and Information Communication and Technology, Tembinkosi Mamba, says the textbook they designed shows government's commitment of developing the sector.
In 2018, the government of Eswatini, through the Ministry of Education and Training, launched the National Curriculum Framework of Eswatini. As a result of that, there is a subject that has been introduced which starts at grade 3. So this year, those who are doing grade 3 have a new subject called Information and Communication Technology. So these learners, this book or these materials will help the learners to use confidently computers, including laptops, including handheld devices. It will also help learners learn and be aware of the ethics that govern operational of information and communication technology.
Nomfundo Sugati, the curriculum designer for French, says it is important for learners to study different languages.
French is introduced, and one of the recommendations is that we are cognizant of the fact that we live in Eswatini, yes, but we also live in a global community which is diverse culturally, and it is important for Emaswati children to learn other languages so that they can go and learn in other countries and access other skills and professions which are maybe easily accessible when they have the language, so that there is no language barrier.
The curriculum designers say the ministry plans to issue the French and Information Communication and Technology textbooks every year until all grades are covered. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Muzi Mkhonda, Manzini.
Women in Law in Eswatini Director Zanele Tabete says enhancing women's political participation in the Eswatini campaign targets both men and women. She says they will visit all 59 Tinkhundla centers to ensure that women are fully capacitated on issues regarding their participation in leadership positions. Our reporter Sonto Mlangeni has more on that story.
Enhancing women's political participation in Eswatini campaign started last year in January, where the target is empowering women, youth and men to support and allow women to participate in political positions. The Women in Law in Eswatini's director, Zanele Tabete, says they visited 2 Tinkhundla centers as of now, as they are targeting all Tinkhundla centers within the country,
in which we seek to provide civic education to all 59 constituencies, making sure that men and women alike understand what equal participation can do to the development of the country. We have been to certain communities, and we know that because of COVID, we were not able to visit physically, but we have done some groups virtually, but now because of the grace of letting down all the restrictions or some of the restrictions, we've been able last week to go to Gamula community, which is in the Lubombo region. We were also in Eswatini some time ago under Lobamba Lomzala, teaching people on that, the equality and the chances that people should have in participation. And we are looking forward just this Wednesday to being in Madlangempisi in Nkundla and also reaching out to all the 59 Tinkhundlas in the country.
The empowerment of women by the Women in Law organization is in line with Sustainable Development Goal number 5, which speaks on equality. For Eswatini TV, Sondo Mlangeni in Babane.
Eswatini Arts and Music Association's President Lutho Dlamini says local artists are faced with difficulty coping in the entertainment sector as the industry was on hold for 12 months. Dlamini says the COVID-19 relief fund for artists can play a huge role in boosting their career.
Eswatini Artists and Music Association members met with the acting Prime Minister Themba Masuku on issues regarding the gradual opening of the entertainment industry. The SWAMA's president, Lutho Dlamini, says having the industry being closed for 12 months has resulted in many artists being homeless, as some couldn't afford to pay rent and some of their assets were repossessed.
Bekuyobonga ukuthi wasiva waMasuku ngoba saqale sathicita kuye wa relax sesiyocela kenyana ukuthi akabone ukuthi sibambisa njani sivile kusoma business labancane bebathola lewo zuka ngalesikhathi sale lockdown. Now le industry le angathi noma sithi nzanzaneni azange sebathole ngisho percent sizama ke kucela kona kublobdzala ukuthi
the government of Eswatini announced a gradual opening of the entertainment sector as gatherings are allowed with people not more than 100. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, Sondo Mlangeni in Babane.
The Eswatini Action Group Against Abuse says the study by the Commission on Human Rights and Public Administration Integrity on lessons learned during the implementation of the Sexual Offences and Domestic Violence Act of 2018 will inform interventions needed to fight against gender-based violence. Now, the Communications Officer, Sakile Dlamini, says the findings of the study will be useful to the organization.
The Commission on Human Rights and Public Administration Integrity presented a report on the study on lessons learned during the implementation of the Sexual Offences and Domestic Violence Act of 2018 to the Ministry of Justice Portfolio Committee on Friday last week. The study reveals that the total number of cases under this act have increased by 289% between 2015 and 2019. Eswatini Action Group Against Abuse Communication Officer Sakile Dlamini says the findings of the study could mean that more eMaSwati have been educated and know about gender-based violence. She says it could also mean that people know the channels of reporting these crimes and are confident in the systems that deal with them.
Bamfuse banalo lwati sebayati ukuthi kuyini ukuhlukubeteka andinifo lengasifokotisa leyo ngoba vele sithi inhlangano asilali siphuma singena sifundzisa ngabo kuhlukubeteka sichaza inhlobo zokuhlukubeteka.
She continues to say that as an organization they will continue to educate eMaSwati about all types of abuse. The Deputy Commissioner of the Human Rights Commission and Public Administration Integrity Duduzile Dlamini Nhlengethwa says over 2,000 people are in custody charged under the Act. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, Nelson Langamandla, Babane.
The Hilton Garden Inn manager Christine Lovu says she's impressed with the speed in which all emergency departments respond whenever there are accidents. She was speaking during a fire simulation at the hotel.
Many people in Babane for a minute thought the Hilton Garden Inn was on fire in the morning on Monday, yet it was just a simulation of fire response. The Hilton Garden Inn partnered with different stakeholders, including the fire department, the police service, the EMS, NTMA, the municipality of Mbabane, to name amongst a few, on fire response. The purpose was to protect customers and employees of the hotel in an event of fire. The deputy station commander in the fire services, Jumisani Kumalo, says it was an eye-opener on which areas to work on or improve on had there been cases of fire in the country. He says it also improves on working partnership among themselves. The Hilton Garden Inn manager Christine Lovu applauds the partnership with all stakeholders, saying they outdid themselves and they were dedicated.
The minute we pressed the call or placed the call to the fire department, the response time was perfect. Why do I say that? In many instances, you have a switchboard operator that may delay the process. But in this kind of situation, the experience has been a positive because we placed the call to 3 local numbers that everybody has been aware, and those numbers are part of our safety and security trainings. The minute that call was picked up by fire, we've already had the siren coming. It shows that they are ready in terms of their resources, in terms of their vehicles, in terms of all the equipment that they have used.
She says the simulation will also help other hotels to do the same. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Kian MCB with Byelections Chole, Mbabane.
The Eswatini Water Services Corporation Head of Communications, Nomahlube Matuane, pleads with the Lavumisa residents to use water sparingly because the dam that supplies Eswatini with water has been malfunctioning, resulting to no supply of water. She says as a result, they have issued a water rationing schedule.
Lavumisa and some of its neighboring areas is faced with the problem of the shortage of water. This is as a result of a South African dam that feeds into Eswatini that has been malfunctioning for quite some time. The Eswatini Water Services Corporation Head of Communications, Nomahlube Matuane, explains the cause and alternative measures in the meantime.
To date, we haven't received any inflow coming into Lavumisa Balancing Dam. This has obviously forced Eswatini Water Services Corporation to issue a rationing schedule just so that whatever water we have in our reservoirs, treated water in our reservoirs, will at least last up to a point where we are able to receive raw water coming in from South Africa. So we did issue a rationing schedule that advises our customers in Lavumisa, in Matanjeni, in Somdongo, of when water services will be available in their areas.
She pleads with residents to use water sparingly. She says they will continue to communicate as they try to normalize the situation. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Kian MCB with Byelections, Eswatini.
Welcome back. Now we take a look at news making headlines in the world of sport. The president of Cricket Association, Ruben Nxumalo, says they are still facing challenges of rewarding their champions with money, which is also affecting them on bringing in more numbers to the sport. Nxumalo was speaking during this season's finals, and he says they are only able to award trophies to their champions. Patizum CB has more on that story.
Even though the Cricket Association still manages to continue hosting their games, they still face challenges which also affect the growth of the sport. The association say they're still struggling to award prize monies to their champions. The president of the association, Ruben Nxumalo, explains.
Sifisile ukuthi sigcine nathi njengoba nibonile nje isikhathi esiningi lapha thina si-awada ngema-trophies kuphela kude.
Nxumalo says they wish to also be able to award their teams with money, but they currently do not have the sponsors who can be able to pump in money, which can also help attract other people to join the sport, and the standard will surely grow. Nxumalo says they appreciate the passion shown by the players who are still showing up to play, even though they do not get nothing. So it's good to see that.
Wanyalo siyabonga nokuthi nje bayeda labantu despite ukuthi kude lena ngizana kukhombisa lithando lalomdlalo.
Tatars were able to defend their title after beating new finalist Malkans Cricket Club, and the president said it's refreshing to see another team making the finals instead of the same teams. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizum CB with Fabrice Msonera, Malkans.
The chairman of the anti-doping task team in the country, Lucky Dube, says they have started educating more sporting associations on the banned substances in sports. Dube was speaking in an interview with the Eswatini TV sports journalists in Mbabane.
Use of banned substances in sports in the country is not something that was hugely paid attention to, which also made it hard for some of the athletes not to know what they are supposed to use or not. Last year, the Football Association and Olympics movement hosted an anti-doping workshop where they trained people who would go out and educate athletes on those regulations to have to follow. The chairman of the anti-doping task team that was formed after the workshop, Lucky Dube, says they have started working on some of the developed strategies.
Bese sesakha ke le training plan yethu ke sesicedzile nayo ngiyoke lesesicalile ke nyalo sesiphumile sesiyakiwo ke ema association.
Dube says they started by creating the content to work with and make it customized for Eswatini. And they now have finished working on their training plans of how they will go about educating those athletes. And they decided that they will have to start with the executives of those associations, where they will educate them first about anti-doping, then the next will be the athletes themselves.
Ke sesiya kulama athletes wona la siyowafundzisa khona ngawo lo le anti-doping.
Dube concluded by saying it is important for athletes to know all the banned substances so that they do not find themselves banned for taking something that they did not even know it was banned. He also encouraged all athletes to be free from any drug use, as they can be tested at any given time. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizum CB, Mbabane.
Well, Eswatini, that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. But before we go, here's a quick reminder of our top stories tonight. The number of COVID-19 admissions in the country have decreased drastically. The Ministry of Education has issued French and ICT textbooks that will be used by grade 3 learners. And SWAMA President Lutho Dlamini says local artists are faced with a lot of challenges during the COVID-19 era. Well, Eswatini, that brings us to the end of our news bulletin at 8 here at Eswatini TV. Thank you so much for choosing to stay with us. We shall cross over to the Weather Center for a detailed weather report from us and the rest of the transmission crew here at Eswatini TV. For now, it's good night and God bless.